All right, I'm back on with my buddy Adam, and we're talking Leo, the CEO. And Adam, you've got a great term. I'm not going to steal your thunder, but I love it so much when you talk about cops who become CEOs, and it's called what?
Clarity.
Coptrepreneurship.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait a second. I don't know where you're going. I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry, that went way over my head. See, I have that slick bald head and things just fly right over it sometimes. So
You're
yes, I
streamlined, man.
I I like to refer to that as copreneurship. Yes, and a
Yeah.
cop that leaves their law enforcement to go to become a CEO, start their own business is a copreneur. Absolutely.
And so to that point, we were talking about like, what are the keys to success of somebody who's transitioning and from Leo to CEO. And clarity was something that we talked about. And
Yeah.
you have a really fascinating story around when you transitioned. The one thing that you would have brought with you or wish you had more of was clarity. And talk a little bit about that. Why is that so important in when you're transitioning to be a copreneur?
Yeah, I just wasn't prepared, I guess. Even though I had 6 months to figure out what I was doing, that 6 months, I mean, there was a lot of work to do that 6 months to prepare for a political, a power transition, if you will, right? So it's not like I had every day for 6 months to figure out how I was going to start my business, and the clarity that I didn't have there, I wasn't prepared to know how to start my own business and
Mm.
what order to do things in, how to properly communicate with my ideal audience that I wanted to be able to speak to. And I made a lot of really dumb mistakes, and I had to pivot quite a few times, make changes, lost some money, but ultimately, uh, we have to remember, and I think I'm just going to be blunt about it. At the risk of offending some people, I don't think I will, but I'm going to say that anyway. Um, us
We
cops
got thick
tend to
skin
be
here.
very, yeah, right, exactly. We tend to be very type A. We all know that. And with that, I think comes a little bit of narcissism. And so we are taught to think very proudly. I won't say highly. We think proudly of ourselves, and we should because we're very well trained individuals. We do a noble and just thing. But when it comes to how we market to people, that form of communication doesn't work because what I see happen all the time for cops that are transitioning out and starting their own businesses, they put together a website, right? Because every entrepreneur likes to bootstrap and do things themselves, and that's good. You have to prove your concept, right? Make sure people actually want what you have to offer. And you got to bootstrap things early on. However, in that process of bootstrapping, you don't really know what you're doing. I didn't either until I learned some lessons. And, I see a lot of these, a lot of guys that build these lousy websites and it's all about them. It's like, it's essentially their SWAT resume and they're, and, and you're going, well, what does this have to do with me hiring you for a training course or, whatever it might be. And what I try to, the golden rule here that I share with people, because again, clarity, like you said, is what we're after. Well, clarity comes when you take the recognition that you can't expect your customer, your ideal target audience, to enter into your story. You have to enter into their story, right? And the other big mistake, this is a big paradigm shift for a lot of companies that I coach and work with, especially in the public safety space. They position themselves as the hero of that story, and
Mm.
you're not the hero. Your customer is the hero, and in fact, you play a much better role because the hero is actually the weakest character in the story. They lack confidence. They don't have a plan. They don't know what to do. You play the guide. The guide is the most powerful character in the story that has a plan, knows how to do it, and you have to position yourself in that way.
That's so great, and I think that's right on with what we've been talking about with resumes. We see a lot of that where, hey, look at all these great things that I did that have really no relevance to what I'm trying to what job I'm applying for, and I think that resonates with folks who may be interested in being an entrepreneur, being their own boss, and being a CEO. How do you tell that story and make it resonate with your ultimate client and your customer? What kind of challenges, what kind of pitfalls can you let our listeners know who might be interested in starting their own business? uh, what should they be aware of? What kind of things did you run into that you're like, I've got to tell everybody to be aware of this thing? Is there something that top of mind that's important to you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the lessons I learned the hard way, even though people were telling me, and I just ignored them because, again, I'm a little narcissistic and I thought I knew better. Um, but I had people telling me that you really need to hone in on what your best skills and attributes are as you build your business. And obviously that has direct application when we're talking about a service-based business versus a product. But I mean, the concept still applies. um, you don't need to be everything to everybody, okay? And you don't need to do everything for everybody. And so
Mhm.
that was a big mistake I made is early on when I started this thing off. It was originally just me being a web designer, and then it turned into other things. And right now my business is far different than it ever was because I hardly do any web design anymore. Most of what I do is coaching and strategy. But ultimately, early on, I was like, oh, I got to offer this and I got to offer that and I got to offer this thing and that thing. And I stretched myself so thin that I couldn't get it all done. The other big mistake, sort of along similar lines, is that you really want to create a specific ideal client when you come up with a business plan. Everybody makes this mistake right off the bat, right out of the gate when they start their business. They think I have to appeal to as many people, as broad of an audience as possible, because that's where I can cast a bigger net, I can catch more fish, right? Well, it really doesn't work out very well that way. And in fact, what you do is establish yourself as somebody who's not really well versed at what you're doing. Because when you operate as a generalist, you're not a expert, okay? And
Okay.
so you have to niche down and you have to say this is exactly who I want to work with, which obviously is something I'm still working on, and that's part of what Leo to CEO for me is all about is honing in on who I actually want to work with. Because now, when I'm coaching, I put myself out there and say I'm going to work with any company that does anything, whether you sell high heels or coffee, and I'm going to help you with your marketing. Well, that doesn't position me as much of an expert. But when I can say, you know what, I'm a career cop, I have a background in law enforcement, and now I'm also a marketer and I can help coach you through your strategy and your messaging. Now all of a sudden, I'm a lot more. I have a much greater appeal to companies, especially in the public safety space or private security space, that say, you understand us. You understand who we're trying to communicate with. And now I get to charge more for that. I mean, quite
Interesting.
bluntly, I'm a subject matter. So niche down, focus on who you actually want to work with, and quit wasting your energy and resources on trying to appeal to a broad audience.
And I'd say very easily that is what we want people to do when they're considering transition to a corporate security role or into working for somebody else. I think that's a great analogy. What I want people to do is follow along with our conversations. Adam is going to be dropping a podcast that he and I did, and please follow his podcast. It's great. He talks to a lot of really amazing innovators, and because that's what I see all of us as being. We've had to innovate to be where we are,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And ask questions below. I know Adam will comment on them. Adam's got a unique vision of social media and business, and keep following him. He's got great products and great services. It's important to Adam and I that the people who are in that transition or considering transition know that you're not going out there alone. We are here to do this with you. And I appreciate, Adam, your time to talk with me today. I know you're a busy guy. And any last second words of wisdom from you and what you've learned throughout this process?
I would just encourage anybody that's listening, because I know, I'll admit I felt stuck at times in my law enforcement career. There were what was more than one time where I thought, you know what, I don't think I want to do this forever. And, I had considered doing something different. And I hear that from people all the time now. And they say, I felt stuck. In fact, we just did an episode this morning with a good friend of mine that transitioned from an LAPD gang cop to now running a multi-million-dollar Facebook ads agency. And that's what he said. He's like, I felt stuck. Well, you don't have to feel stuck. There are other options. Law enforcement requires us to be subject matter experts in so many different things. You
So,
know, if you're a cop, you are far more well positioned than pretty much anybody on the planet to transition to an entrepreneur role. And I want to encourage you guys to that, and that you don't have to feel stuck.
you're not stuck and you're not going it alone. That's great. Adam, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming on and talking to me on these posts and more great things to come. So everybody stay tuned and keep that conversation going.